So I've got this Roland RD-150 stage piano and it has a few keys that don't work. I've marked them out here with tape, but all the other keys work. So in this video today, I'm going to try and fix that. Just take it apart, and I think it's just the key switches are probably a bit dirty. So I'll try and take it apart, clean them up and see how we go. Okay, so the first challenge here is how do we actually get this open? So I have undone all the screws down the back, but I can't get that off. It is moving at the back, but I feel like something's caught at the front here, so I think I'm going to have to flip it over and undo all the screws on the bottom. Okay, so I've had a look at the service manual, which does have some brief disassembly instructions. It looks like I need to undo some of these screws on the bottom, these down the end here, and maybe this one here. All right, I'll give that a go, see how it works. This thing is very heavy. Okay, progress. Okay, so I'm just looking at how to get these keys off. So, looking at this key here, zoom this in a bit. See, there's a little tab here. If you press that in with the screwdriver, it actually allows this key to pop off. But still can't actually get this key off because look in there, it's kind of hooked on something. So I need to take this little front piece off so that I can move the keys back that way. So I wish I'd done that before I'd taken it apart. Oh well, you live and you learn. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop these keys off in order because I think the key switches are maybe in groups. So I'll just pop them off in order until I've got enough. I'll give them a clean and then I'll put them back on. Or at least that's the plan at the moment. We'll see how that goes. having trouble getting these off with this screwdriver. I think I might need to make a little tool out of plastic or something to pop that off, because I need to be really careful with this screwdriver to make sure I don't gouge this little bit of plastic or the switch. So I might try and make something maybe out of plastic or a piece of bamboo actually. Right, so I tried making this little tool. This is just out of some bamboo that I just split to size so that it fits into this hole, but there's just too much flex in the tip here, so it doesn't work. So I think I have to go back to something metal, but I might try and get something that's a bit more rounded, so it's less likely to bite in. There you can see that little notch that's been pressed into it. That's how much softer this is than the plastic. It's actually pressed and compressed it. It's worth a try. Okay, next things to try. I have a number 7, like a house number, that's stainless steel. Give that a try. Got a 6mm open-ended wrench, and I've got an old stainless steel scalpel handle. Let's give them a try. Because I can't do this one-handed. Okay, well, number 7 works okay. Wrench, no good, it's just a little bit too big. Scalpel handle's just a little bit too thick. These black keys are particularly difficult to pop off. You can feel that latch click in, but I can't lift it up. Need to think about how to do this. Okay, seem to have figured out the trick to it now. You've got to press it in a bit harder than I thought. The white keys not so much, but for the black keys, push it in a bit harder and you hear 2 clicks. It's that second click that does it. There we go. And now it's just a matter of, I think, looking at it, I think to get to these switches, I'm going to need to take all of the keys off. Maybe I can get to it from underneath. Regardless, I'm going to have to take all of the keys off because there is a lot of dust and gunk down there which I'm going to need to clean out anyway. So I better get to it. really is quite amazing. Like, these keys are just really lightweight plastic, but it's just interesting seeing this hammer action, the way that adds a weighted feel. So yeah, I find it remarkable. For these black keys, you really got to press it in hard, and you hear it, you feel it click twice and hear it a bit. And it's always tricky when you're doing an unknown thing, how much force to apply. You've got to apply enough force, but you don't want to break it. I guess these things are a bit tougher than I thought they were. So this here is one of the keys that doesn't work. Okay, see if we can get in and have a look. And, you can see down there, the key is pressing on the sensor, so nothing obvious visually, but I'm guessing it's just a corroded contact. We'll have to, once we clean it off, and then we'll see what comes of it. So just one other little thing I've noticed. Right here in front of these little hinge points, you've got springs. They're just loose. So yeah, I was just going to get a vacuum and vacuum along here, but I think that's a terrible idea because it's going to suck up some of these little springs. So I'll figure a better way to clean that. But yeah, I noticed one of these was loose. I wonder if that was why one key was a little bit funny, because the spring had come loose. Not sure. All right, so I'm just giving the keys, giving everything a bit of a clean. And well, there's a lot of gunk down in between these keys. I didn't have a strict no food or drink around the keyboard policy before, but I definitely have one now, and there's definitely always going to be a dust cover on the keyboard when it's not in use, because it is really gunky. Another interesting thing I found, I just noticed this circuit board has been repaired by a previous owner. Looks like a track burnt out, and they've just bridged it with that wire. Nothing out of the ordinary, but I thought that was just interesting to note. Okay, so I've done a reasonable amount of cleaning of just dust of the keys, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually take this module off the base so I can get underneath it to see if I can access these key switches. So there are a number of screws that hold this to the bottom plate, so I'm just going to undo those so I can access it. These screws are longer than the others. So there's 3 along the top. those three out, I'm going just to hang it over the edge so that I can undo these ones where it's horizontal. Unscrew I missed. Another one here. One more. Let's try that. Okay. So there's some ribbon cables under there. So I should be able to undo those and lift this off. Right, there we go. Okay, need to figure out what to do next from here. Okay, so I've flipped over the actual hammered action unit now. So it's upside down to how it was before. And see along here, this is the circuit board that holds the key switches. So looks like it's divided in half. And I've got to undo these brackets. And then I'll need to undo a whole bunch of these screws to lift the board off. So I guess I'm going to lift that off and then clean every single key switch because I can't, I'll be able to figure out which ones were not working, but given I've gotten this far, it's worth my while just to clean every single one because it is a bit of a pain to get it apart like this. Okay, let's get to it. There's a different screwdriver. I think I'm just going to go one half the keyboard at a time. It's quite tight. Feels like that might have been Loctited in actually, which means I should get some Loctite for reassembly. Yeah, it feels like it's Loctited in as well, just a bit stickier. Yeah, they got Loctite on those threads, interestingly. You can see we've got like a self-tapping screw there versus fine threads here. the rest off camera because that's boring to watch. So just quickly looking, we've got this little ribbon connector between boards. It's a little different to what I thought it was. I thought it was one that plugged in that way, but it actually lifts up, so you can see it. And these little arms here hold it down, so yeah, just a little bit different from what I expected. Okay, I'm going to take this board off, so undo all these screws. Leaving these in here for the moment. I think it should be okay. I don't need to keep track of, they're all the same screws. Ideally I'd lay them out in a pattern so I know which one goes where, but I'm really running out of room. This is a very big keyboard. I filled up my dining table. Take all of these out. Little self-tapping screws. And down there. Right, there we go. That is it. So, let's have a look here. Yep, they just peel off. Let's have a look. So you've got the little pads there underneath. Here we've also got the little contacts, so they're the carbon contacts on the switch. These little knobs poke into the circuit board to hold it in place, and it kind of looks like carbon pads there, not copper pads. So I noticed this got some damage to the PCB here. I think must have taken a fair whack on the side at some point. But luckily, it looks like that doesn't cause any problems. Not sure what that little bit there is. But yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to get these off and carefully clean them. I actually don't think there are any on this end of the board, because this is the base end. I don't think there are any here that have any problems. But I'm going to clean them anyway because I've got it off. Okay, so I've cleaned these. Basically, I just got some isopropyl alcohol, sprayed it across the pads, used a cotton bud just to give them a clean, gave the little nubs on the switch a gentle clean with the cotton bud, with a bit of isopropyl alcohol on it. And now I'm just putting them back. So you can see they've got these little knobs here. They poke into the holes. So I've just got a little probe here. I'm just gently pushing that in. Got to be careful with this because this is a little bit sharp. And I don't want to poke through with it. But yeah, if I just sort of gently push it in, it seems to be okay. they seem to be banks of 12 of these switches, except for the very bottom one, which only had 3. Yeah, it's just a matter of going through and doing that for each of them. So after cleaning all the keycaps, I put it all back together, tested it out, and unfortunately the same problem still was occurring. So I pulled it apart again. Doing a visual inspection, the first thing that stood out to me was these pins here and these tracks. I measured the resistance between them, and one of the tracks, the bottom one there, is actually high resistance. So it connects up the one of the resistors here to one of the diodes there. Okay, so I did try just resoldering this joint in case it was dry. Yeah, looking at it up close, it was definitely a dry joint. So I just tried resoldering it to see if that would fix it, but unfortunately not. Now, whereas before it was, it was reading something like, in the 20-30 kilo ohms range. Now, when I check the resistance between there and there, it's just open circuit. So yeah, I think there's definitely some damage to the track, and it may be because the joint was dry that increased the resistance, caused a bit of heat, and that's what burnt the track out. But anyway, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to have to do, is just bridge that track with a little piece of wire. So I've just found some here. This is just some solid core kind of hookup wire. This is always going to be tricky and painful, but yeah, I'll try and do it. I was initially wondering whether I should do it on this side or on the other side of the board, where we're bridging between this resistor and this leg of this diode. But yeah, I mean, that would probably be preferable, because when this is assembled, this is the side that kind of faces away from the keyboard action. So it's a bit more visible. I was worried there was not going to be room when this is screwed down, but I did check it, and yeah, it'll be fine, because this circuit board mounts on like a plastic frame, but it does have standoffs, so there should be plenty of clearance for this little wire. Doing it on this side, probably if I could do it, the way I'd do it is I'd do a wire wrap around each leg, which is actually a much better way to connect up components than solder, if you do it properly. But this particular piece of wire that I've got here is actually too thick to get underneath the legs of the components, and I just don't have any other hookup, like solid core hookup wire that's thin enough to do that, so I'll just have to go with soldering on this piece on the other side. Yeah, if I had, an endless supply of hookup wire of all different gauges and stuff like that, this job would be much easier, but unfortunately I don't. So right, let's see how we go with this soldering. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is just tin the ends of this wire that I've very carefully shaped. It does not want to stick on there. this iron a bit too hot. This is not a very good soldering iron. I pulled it out of a scrap bin and I worked as an electronics technician at the workshop. And while it still works, I suspect the temperature control's not great. And definitely the heating of the tip is not very even. So the base of the tip up here is much hotter than the tip, the end of the tip. There we go. Nice little blob of solder. The other thing is that I'm not very good at soldering. All right, now let's try and get this soldered to the board. Okay, here we go. Let's see. We can go, because I've tinned these leads, hopefully I should just be able to heat them up and they'll just melt in. Let's see. I really hate soldering. This is probably why I'm no longer an electronics technician. Not that being an electronics technician these days involves much soldering. So when I was doing it, it was all just board level replacement. The only soldering I did, there's one type of machine which had a CMOS backup battery on the board. It wasn't in a holder, it was actually it was soldered directly to the board. Go. I think that's stuck. Now that that end is stuck, it should be a bit easier to work on this end. Then I can go back and touch them up and put a bit more solder on. Clean that excess solder off. Let's have a look at that. Come on, focus. There we go. That is rather ugly, but I'll do some testing and see whether it's functional enough. Might have to put a dab more solder just to make those joints a bit more solid. But, all right, let me check that and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so in the process of touching up this one here, I have managed to accidentally bridge this contact and this contact. The solder just kind of flowed over, which is a bit of a pain. This one's fine. These two contacts were actually bridged anyway. You can see that quite a few of these ones up here are bridged. I did a much cleaner job on that one. Of course, I did this one first, bridged, did this one second, and it was a much better job. So I should have done this one first because it didn't matter if I bridged it. But anyhow, that's really annoying. So in a situation like this, I should get out the solder sucker or some solder wicking braid and just get rid of all this excess solder and then redo both joints. I don't know if I've still got a solder sucker. Maybe I do, but it's probably hidden somewhere. Certainly don't have any solder absorbing braid, but what I do have is an old, this is an old firewire cable with a braided shield. So what I've done, snipped off one end, and I'm going to just extract this braid and use that as a solder braid to absorb all of the excess solder. The idea with this is that just because it's such a fine wire, there's so much surface area, it just wicks away the solder really well. So it's a good way to clean up excess solder. So yeah, this was just an old cable I happen to have lying around that I don't need anymore. It's an old firewire cable. Definitely won't have any use for that, so it becomes a sacrificial solder braid. Just for fun, let's have a look inside this section of cable. It's actually kind of neat. So got the clear outer, strip that off. We've got this braid, and we can actually pull out the core. So we've got the outer, plastic outer braid. Then we've got this inner part which is wrapped in foil. Layer there. Next it's wrapped in clear plastic. And then you've got one tiny black conductor, one white conductor, and then two more that are also in their own braid. And then this one in the middle, oh, it's even more. So it's another layer of foil wrapping. Let's move all of this up. And then two more conductors. So we've got outer plastic, outer braid, foil, plastic. Then inside that you've got two bare conductors, and then another two conductors each within their own braid. So it's actually a pretty complex cable, the firewire cable. Only 4 conductors, but yeah, a lot of shielding there. Anyway, I thought that was a bit of an interesting diversion, just how complicated these are. And yeah, very good source of solder braid. I'm sure there's someone out there who has old equipment that uses firewire cables who's probably crying right now, but unfortunately I don't have anything that uses firewire, and I really need something to clean up this solder. So there we go. Alright, let's see how this goes. I really don't like soldering. I've got to be very careful not to damage any other components. This inner braid's probably actually going to be a lot better. Ooh. You know what? I think that actually did it. I think that wasn't actually bridged. It was just kind of over the top. All right, I think that's actually done it. Great. All right, let's see if that has one, fixed the broken track, and two, whether I've still got that short between the pads. Okay, so it's fixed the broken track. Let's measure between this other pad. Nope, that looks good. All right, I think we are good. So I'm just gonna give this a check over to make sure that there's been no damage to any of the pads or anything else. I actually think we're ready to put it back in and test it out. So I got it all back together. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to film the process of me putting it back together, but it wasn't that exciting. But yeah, all back together now, working fine. So I'm very happy with that repair. I did note that there were a couple of other tracks on that PCB that looked not great, and I wonder whether those ones will burn out in time. But I was getting a little bit frustrated with the soldering, so I figured rather than sort of trying to bridge them at the same time, I just wanted to get it back together and validate that it does work. And if I need to, I'll do it again. Now that I know how to pull it apart, it's not as daunting to take it apart and fix it. I wouldn't need to take all the keys off. I could just take the covers off, flip it over, and access the PCB from beneath. So yeah, that's it. I'm really happy with this repair. Got this. I mean, this is a great piano that I picked up for not that much, and I was able to get it working again. And now that I know what it's like on the inside, I expect that the next time something goes wrong, I'll be able to fix it again, and hopefully this piano will last a very long time. Okay, well that's it for today. Thanks for watching.